Okay, so this video is going to be about predicting a trend on a graph and looking at making predictions with information on a graph. Now, tonight's homework, if you're looking at it, has like 5 questions and it gives you a couple different graphs. One graph, it asks you to put the information down. The other graphs, it actually has some information on there and it wants you to make a prediction. And one of the last graphs, you have to put the information on the graph itself, then extend the graph and make a prediction based on that. Okay, so if you look at the graph that I have behind me, really quick, I just did something through together. It says, okay, GPA, your grade point average. And then over here I put hours studied. So basically the thing that's going on down here is this. The more you study, maybe the higher grades you're going to get. So a half an hour, you get a 1.0 GPA. All right, 1 hour, you get a 2.0 GPA. Between 1.5 and 2 hours, you get just under a 3.0 GPA. 2.5 hours, just around a 3.0 GPA. Then 3.5 hours brings you below 4.0. And then 4.5 hours brings you above that GPA for 4.0. And you might be going, hey, how do I get above a 4.0 GPA? Well, you get that extra credit, maybe take an honors course, maybe take an AP class. Those all count for additional higher grade point averages in many cases. So for the purposes of our graph, I want to go through about how to extend the graph, and then I want to go through about how to make a prediction off it. So let's talk about a prediction first. If I'm looking at this, we know what a trend is because previously we talked about trends. So let's just say I try to draw a trend line. Okay, I'm trying to show where things are going. Now with my eyes and the dots, I can kind of predict that already. But let's say I connect the dots. So there's a definite jump from this half-hour mark to that 1 hour mark. Now keep in mind, these are just numbers that I threw up there for fun. Okay? They kind of follow a general gut check of the more you study, the better you're going to do. There are exceptions to that too. I mean, somebody can be really bright, listen in class, and do really well on something. You might be able to remember everything from beginning to end and not have any issues like that. Others of you might really need to study in order to retain information. Kind of just depends, because we all learn in different ways and different styles too. Now, setting that stuff aside, let's talk about what we're looking on the graph. Generally, the trend is the more you study, the higher your GPA is going to be. Now, I probably could have changed this better and gone, instead of GPA, switched to like percentages on assignments, and that might have been a better comparison. But this is still pretty easy to follow if someone uses this as a general rule that we're looking at. If I was going to ask you to predict, if I studied for 3 hours, what my GPA would be, based upon the trend I already have, I would find the number 3, which is right there. I would then follow it up to where I think it might hit, which would be right about here. Now, that makes sense based upon the information I have past it for the hours and for less hours. Okay, so for more hours it's up here, for less hours down here. So this kind of makes sense that it would kind of hit that trend line. So I can kind of make a prediction on that. Is it always going to be like that? No. Mostly it should be based upon the information you're given. But you might end up having something like an outlier. Now, an outlier is the thing that just makes no sense. For example, the kid who only shows up to class to take a test in college and gets an A. Okay? Could be because they're brilliant, could be because they study a bunch on their off time, but for whatever reason, that's an outlier. Or it could be that kid who spends a tremendous amount of time studying and then still crashes and burns. You've heard this, you've seen this. You've seen people who have test anxiety, who stress out really bad, and they're worried, and they get in, they sit down, and they choke on the test. A lot of people go into tests feeling uncomfortable, feeling unhappy, feeling nervous, and that's pretty normal, but what you have to remember though is that everybody's a little bit different, and test is exactly that. It's simply an assessment of something you're doing. So there are outliers, okay? So you can't have things that are statistically not fitting in what we're looking at. But based upon the information given, with the larger number of hours and the less number of hours, it would be safe to assume, with this information here, that that would make sense. And that's how you might want to make a prediction using a graph based on your homework. So if it asked you what you would get on a certain number of hours for a certain number of studies, that would make sense. Because you would find the number, we're looking at 3, go up until it hits that trend line, and that puts you somewhere in between those two, which is kind of logical in a way. So it's a plausible answer, so that means it kind of might fit. This would help you out if you're looking at that question that talks about the January temperatures and the July temperatures, and they're looking for the comparison between the two. That's, I believe, number 5 on the homework. So take a quick look at that. That would help you out. Now, the other thing is extending the graph. So let's say I wanted to extend the graph to get even more times. Okay, so here's the thing. Say I extend that graph over this way. So I go to 5 hours, then I go to 5.5, then I go to 6, and I go to 6.5, and let's say I go to 7. Now, here's the thing. Even if you get some extra credit on your GPA, even if you get some honors or an AP, it's not going to be able to continue climbing at that rate, okay? Because at some point, you get an A, you get an A plus. Maybe you don't even have A pluses like we do in our school. We don't give A pluses, okay, in the middle school. But you can have, your A grade. It's going to flatten and level off. So that prediction's not going to help you. But if I was dealing with a different type of measurement that I could extend it out, let's say talking about hours worked and dollars earned, that would be a good comparison on this graph. If I needed to extend the graph to make a prediction, well, I could do that. I add the graph physically, literally extend it, and add more of the hours in based upon the scale and interval that I'm using. And then I can adjust up to look and see what I might be making, following the trend or the previous trend that I have. Now, if you have information that's all over, okay, then that's going to be a little different. Then your trend may actually cut in between and have a high and a low line there, like those January and July temperatures you're looking at on your homework for tonight. But if I was just looking at extending, I literally, physically extend the graph out to help me make a prediction on something. And then I add the extra information. So if I was talking about 7 hours, I had to go there. If I was talking about 6 hours, I could go there. But we know somewhere up here, it's just going to basically flatten off. So at that point, you would see that these additional hours, if I went up, would still get the same payoff. So then you might say to yourself, okay, if I can get this grade at 4.5 hours, why would I study for 7 hours? Again, something you have to decide on yourself and train and to think about too. But that is a valid concern. But based upon what we're talking about today for the homework, 1, extending the graph, that's how you do it. 2, making the prediction, all right, following that trend line to make that prediction, that's how you do that as well. I hope this helped a little bit. If you need it, feel free, I hope, to look at it and refer to other people who might need it as well in class if they get stuck when you're looking at it, okay? I'll talk to you guys later this week. Bye.